So when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than this?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Yet Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk whenever you wanted, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hand, and another will dress, and you carry you will not wanted to go." This he said, show what kind of death he wanted to glorify God. And after he said this, he said to him, "Follow me." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you so much, Sebastian. Do grab a seat. I just want to apologize. I've had a slight tech issue, and all of my Google Drive has just crashed. So I'm just changing device. But while I change device, I'm going to tell you that last night I fully had a dream that while I was preaching this morning, I ran the London Marathon first. I mean, you're applauding, I didn't. I didn't run the marathon, but I fully woke up this morning having dreamed that I'd gone and run the London Marathon and showed up here today to preach. And my notes are open. Quick segue. Next year, hopefully, I've entered the ballot, everyone. Okie dokie. We'll get into it. So, thanks for your patience with the segue. So this morning we are in John 21, and Jesus is alive. It's Easter, we celebrated last week, and we want to continue celebrating that because it isn't a past event that we just look back on. It's something that is real, and it's something that changes our everyday lives that we live right now. And today we're landing in the Gospel of John, which is an eyewitness account of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. And where we land at the end of John, it isn't just the end of the story. This isn't where the credits roll, we turn off the TV. It's not where we close the book. It's the beginning of something new. It's the moment where the resurrection power isn't just a past event, but it's a living, breathing reality that transforms everything. Our failures, our friendships, our relationships, all of it is transformed. And this is where the church is born, not only in triumph alone, but in a tender, powerful grace of a resurrected Jesus meeting his disciples, specifically Peter, on the beach, right where he is. And where we're landing, in John 21 at the beach, there's a campfire, and Jesus is cooking breakfast, and he turns to Peter. And Peter is the guy who had jumped out the boat and he'd walked on water. He'd chopped off ears, he'd made big declarations, he saw miracles, and he is the guy that had said to Jesus, "Even if everyone else falls away, I won't. Not me. I won't do that." This is the guy who then 3 times denied that he knew Jesus around a campfire in John 18. And this story isn't a story about failure. It's about resurrection. Resurrection that's personal, that's powerful, and it's intimate. And Jesus is not recreating this moment around the campfire to shame Peter. He's recreating it to restore him. This is a resurrection that remembers pain, but it rewrites the story. This is the grace of Jesus. He doesn't just edit the past, he redeems the past. And we're jumping in at verse 15, when it says they had finished breakfast. So we don't want to skip that they're eating breakfast here. Jesus made breakfast before he addressed Peter's failure. This isn't just a reinstatement to leadership, this is a restoration to relationship with Jesus. In ancient Near Eastern culture, meals weren't just like a formality. You didn't just sit down for dinner to fuel up. They were deeply symbolic of belonging and of being known. And by feeding Peter, Jesus is saying, "You're still my family." He's saying, "You're still one of mine." He's welcomed back in. And this is covenant language, echoing God's heart throughout Scripture to bind up the broken and not just send them back out to work. This is about relationship. And he's saying, Peter, come and eat breakfast with me. And imagine you've messed up in a massive way. You've really let down a friend. You've hurt them. You know that they're upset with you. And you come to them. You've not even apologized yet. And they meet you with your favorite breakfast. And they give you food, and they sit with you, and they forgive you. And this is the vibe. This is what Jesus is doing here. He's feeding before he fixes. Grace isn't this whole thing of sort yourself out and then come to me. It's a sit down with me. Come and have breakfast with me. You're still mine. And this is so countercultural. I don't think we really exist in a world where this is how we treat each other supernaturally. We live in a world of cancel culture, of public shame, of sidelining someone because we believe they're toxic. I don't actually believe people are toxic and can be toxic. Behavior can be, but people aren't. Or being like, you're disrupting my peace. I don't want to hang out with you. We can be so quick to cut people out or to expect punishment when we mess up. But Jesus sits down with Peter and he makes him breakfast. He meets him with kindness, and he doesn't just dust over what's happened under the carpet, but he addresses the past, and he meets Peter with grace. And we see Jesus say, Simon, son of John. So he doesn't call him Peter here, the name that Peter was given. Jesus is calling him by his old name. Why? Well, I think this is because he's taking him back to the beginning. Before the miracles, before the failure, before the old discipleship journey he'd been on with Jesus. And he did this not to dig at him, but Jesus is saying, I know who you were. I know who you are. And I also know who you are becoming and who I am calling you to be. And Jesus is saying, let's start from where we really are. Let's not pretend. There's an author and theologian called Lucy Peppiatt, and she says, Jesus isn't looking for perfect leaders. He's looking for people who will let them rebuild them from love. And I think that's the invitation here from Jesus. That invitation to let him rebuild us with his love. And then comes the question. Jesus says to Peter, do you love me more than these? More than what? The fish? The other disciples? The fishing career he'd walked away from? Do you love me more than your pride? For Peter, the pride that made him say, even if everyone else denies you, I never will. And he's saying, are you still in? Are you still in even after all of that? We sometimes think grace can avoid the hard stuff, but real grace meets us in the hard stuff with tenderness and truth, and it transforms it. And you know that feeling when you've maybe flunked a uni module and you've messed up, or you've maybe messed up on a project, you've let your teammates down, you've lost your temper when you didn't mean to, you've relapsed into old habits, and someone still says, I choose you. I know who you really are. I know you're best. I know who you're made to be. And that's what, again, Jesus is doing here with Peter. And Peter replies and he says, yes, Lord, I know you. I love you. He doesn't try to over-explain it. He knows what he's done, and he knows that Jesus knows. And Jesus doesn't then say, well then, Peter, why did you deny me 3 times then? Or he doesn't say, you've denied me 3 times, Peter. You can say you love me, but you've actually got a lot to prove now. Instead, he says, feed my lambs. Jesus is trusting Peter with people, with the young, with the vulnerable, with those in the beginning stages of their faith. And this is what grace looks like. You're not benched or sidelined or disqualified when you've messed up. You're invited back in. Even before you've been on that healing journey, you're handed purpose. And let's just zoom out for a moment, because what we've just read, right before it, Peter says to the other disciples, he says, I'm going to go fishing now. And they are all like, okay, cool, we'll come with you. It's quite a casual detail. But it's worth noting what's going on here. This is who Peter was before he followed Jesus. He was a fisherman. This was his world. This was his comfort zone. This was his career, his family trade. And now, after the whirlwind of all that's been, the cross, after denying Jesus 3 times, and after watching his entire world fall apart, what does Peter do? Well, he goes back to what was familiar. He goes back to fishing. He's not leading the charge anymore with the bold declarations. He's not preaching to the crowds or jumping out the boat to step onto the water. He's in a boat and he's fishing. Like none of this ever happened. Why? Well, we can only guess, but I wonder if it's because he doesn't really know what else to do. Perhaps it's because he thinks he's disqualified from discipleship now. He's written himself out. Perhaps he feels too ashamed to step forwards, so he's stepping back into what he knew. And I think this probably is quite relatable for lots of us. I think this is quite human nature, isn't it? How many of us have gone back to old habits, old labels, or old patterns? Texting the ex we said we were never going to text again. Picking up the old habits we'd worked really hard to put down. Or letting old narratives and lies that we'd worked so hard to get free from becoming our norm again and hiding behind them again. Not because we want to, but because shame told us we're no longer fit for what's ahead. Not because it's good, but because it's familiar. After failure, after relapse, after breakups, after the silence, we go back to what feels safe, what feels predictable, what feels in control, even if it's empty, even if, like Peter, we catch nothing all night. But here's the beautiful thing. Jesus comes to the shore of Peter's old life, and he meets him there, in the boat, in the limbo, and he does what he did at the start. He performs a miracle, and he fills their nets. And I think this is Jesus saying, I haven't changed my mind about you, Peter. This isn't the end of Peter's story. He calls us again and again and again. He doesn't just call us once, he calls us again and again and again. And now after fishing and after the meal, Jesus turns to Peter, and again he says, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? And he's going deeper, not to press on Peter's shame, but to call him out of it. Peter says yes, but I imagine he's still unsure and the emotions are still quite raw. And Jesus again says to him, take care of my sheep. And I don't think this is a lecture. This isn't a lecture on where he's gone wrong. This is a commission. Take care of my sheep. You've been through it, Peter. You've been cracked open. But now go and love people like I have loved you, from your weakness, from your journey, from your story. Author Ruth Haley Barton puts it like this. She says, we minister best out of places we've been most deeply healed. And that's the kind of person Jesus is shaping here. One who hasn't masked the pain or grown around it or pretended it doesn't exist, but one who sits before Jesus and lets him acknowledge it and invites you into love, invites you into change. And then a third time, Jesus says, do you love me? Not because Jesus is being mean, but because he's real, he's intentional. And Peter denied him 3 times around that fire. And now, around a fire again, Jesus asks him 3 times, Peter, do you love me? 3 questions for 3 denials. This isn't random. This is redemption. And Jesus matching the repeated denial with a repeated call. Every time Peter says, I don't know him, Jesus says, I still want you. Jesus says now, I still want you. I still trust you. Feed my sheep. And let's not miss it. This isn't just a number. This is has significance in symbolism in Scripture. 3 symbolizes completeness, fullness, wholeness. So when Jesus says 3 times, he's not rubbing Peter's nose in it. He's not poking at the failure. He is bringing the work of grace to completion. He's restoring what shame had before been trying to destroy. Jesus doesn't avoid the moment of failure, he redeems it. This is grace that forgives, it restores, it recommissions, it makes broken people whole again. Every time we sin, every time we fall back, every single time we mess up, Jesus meets us with his mercy. He matches every failure with his forgiveness. He responds to our weakness with a renewed invitation. His call is consistent. His grace isn't just enough. His grace is complete. And Peter says, yes, Lord, I know you, I love you. And Jesus doesn't say prove it. He says, feed my sheep. You're still called Peter. I still trust you. You're not disqualified. You have purpose, and I'm sending you. Peter is the one who denied Jesus 3 times, and Jesus calls him the rock. Not after Peter gets it all together, but right in the midst of his weakness, right after he weeps over denial. This is the kind of rock Jesus builds his church on. Not perfection, but restoration. Not clean records, but on scars. And those scars, they don't disqualify us. They become evidence of resurrection. The scars in Peter's story are the same as the scars that Jesus carries in his own body. When Jesus rose again, the wounds were still there. We know that the wounds were still there, but they were no longer bleeding. The pain didn't vanish, but the pain was transformed. That's resurrection. That's redemption. And when we bring Jesus our brokenness, he doesn't just discard it, he refines it. He turns it into something greater. Brokenness becomes boldness. Shame becomes testimony. Scars become strength. And this is the gospel. That our worst moments, it isn't the end. It's the rock on which Jesus can build something new. And what does it mean when he says, feed my sheep? It's not just a poetic thing. Jesus is handing Peter and he's handing us a calling, a commissioning, a way forwards. In John 10, Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd, the one who lays his life down for his sheep. And now he turns to Peter, flawed, the forgiven, the fragile, and he says, now love like that, feed my sheep. It's a call to nourish, to protect, and to serve. Feed my sheep. This is about showing up for people, showing up for your family, your friends, the people in your workplace, your sports teams. And it's loving them with the love that you have received. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep is about helping someone find their way back when they're lost. It's about being safe when someone is raw and hurting. It's about making breakfast for someone who's failed you, who's let you down, who's hurt you, just like Jesus does for Peter, and he does for you. Feeding his sheep, it's about encouraging the discouraged, meeting people in their brokenness. It's listening well, speaking truth, walking with people, even when it might cost us. And it's living like grace is real, because grace is real. And it's sharing that grace with others. And maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm actually ready to do that, or I don't know if I have it together enough to do that. I'm a bit of a mess, I'm in a bit of a pickle, or maybe you're thinking, I'm not liked enough to do that, or I'm not cool enough, whatever cool means, or I'm not healed enough, I'm not whole enough. But the whole point, Jesus doesn't wait until you're whole to hand you purpose. He gives it to you on the way as you walk with him. You don't need a title or a platform or a sign-off as a finished work. If you have said yes to Jesus, even a trembling, maybe a tired, maybe a nervous yes, if you've given him your yes, you are commissioned. Feed my sheep. You're invited to join Jesus in this work of restoration, to be someone to say to others what Jesus has said to you. You're not disqualified. You're still loved, and there's work for you to do. This is the power of the resurrection. It doesn't just lift us up, it sends us out. And then we read in verse 18 and 19, when you were younger, you did what you wanted, but one day someone else will lead you where you didn't want to go. This is a reference to Peter's future, that one day he too will die for his faith. It's heavy, but it's beautiful. Peter once denied Jesus to save his own life. Now, he will follow Jesus until the end because of love, not fear. Resurrection can give us that kind of courage. And then Jesus ends with the words he said right back at the start in John 1. He says, follow me. The same words, but Peter's different now. He's not perfect, but he is forgiven. He's not confident, but he is called. He's not who he was, but he is exactly who Jesus wants him to be. This is what resurrection does. It's not just life after death, but it's new life. New life after failure. It's life in Jesus. And some of us today might feel like Peter. We've denied, we've doubted, we've run, we've let people down, we've let God down, we've perhaps messed up in ways we're too ashamed to say out loud. And we wonder if that's it, if we've disqualified ourselves. But Jesus comes to us in the quiet, not with a lecture, but with a meal, with his presence and with a question. And he says, do you love me? And if we say yes, even a broken, barely holding it together yes, if our answer is yes, it's a game changer. A yes to show up to church, even if we're hungover and saying, Jesus, I'm here for this. I don't want this, I want you. Or it's closing the laptop while we're watching porn and saying, nope, Jesus, I want you, help me, this isn't what I want. It's coming back to church when we've maybe skipped it for a while and we've skipped life groups for a while and we've not shown up, but we come back and we say, God, I still want to believe. I still want to believe. And that's enough for him. And he says to us in those moments, then feed my sheep. You're still mine. You're still called. You still have a place in this story. Tim Keller says, the gospel is this. We are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared believe. Yet, at the very same time, we are more loved and accepted in Jesus Christ than we ever dared hope. And that's what Peter discovers on the beach. And that's what Jesus is still saying to us today. You're not disqualified. You are deeply loved. This isn't just about Peter. This is about you. This is Jesus saying, let me meet you where you are. This is Jesus saying, let me restore what shame tried to shut down. This is Jesus saying, let me rewrite your story, not around your success, but through your surrender. Through your yes, Jesus meets you in pain and brokenness, and he doesn't leave you there. He redeems it. He still wants you. He still trusts you. Jesus is saying, follow me. There's still work to do, but you don't need to do this alone. This is a gospel of grace. This is the power of the resurrection, and it's for all of us. I'd love to invite you to join me in standing, and we'll pray.